Well, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us here on NTV. I'm Joram Paul Sonko. Hope your Monday is going well. The 22nd of June 2026. Glad you could join us for this studio talk show on matters regarding Uganda's refugee situation, refugee policy, and of course, also all in commemoration of the World Refugee Day. Now, the world marked World Refugee Day on Saturday. That was on the 20th of June. Now, as we join the international community to have conversations about the same, we need to also look deeply into the situation of Uganda's refugee community. And then as we also look into where are the missing gaps, but then also looking at how we can involve ourselves in enabling these communities to maybe integrate, but most importantly, to safeguard them as they found solace in Uganda. Now, speaking of this particular conversation, observed annually on June 20th and established by the United Nations, the World Refugee Day does serve as a reminder of our collective responsibility to protect and support the displaced persons from different countries that move. And of course, Uganda does have or house a number of refugees from different countries. Now, in this particular conversation, we're definitely going to be moving around the theme of this year's World Refugee Day, that is, until everyone is safe. I do have a team of panelists with me here, and I'll start off with the one closest to me, that is Miss Florence Masse-Namugere, who is a protection coordinator at the Norwegian Refugee Council. A very good morning, Florence. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers. As he said, Masse Florence, working with the Norwegian Refugee Council under the Department of Protection. And indeed, today we are here basically to again make reflections on what it means for us to host people and of course, what does it mean? Basically drawing from the words of the late Bishop Desmond Tutu when he told us about Ubuntu. So Ubuntu is basically what again brings us here basically today to reflect on the plight of the displaced persons and basically how do we continue to stand in solidarity with them. Of course, when we talk about issues of refugees, we acknowledge that Uganda has been very gracious on hosting refugees. Currently, we have about 13 hosting districts across the country. That is from West Nile, we have Southwest, and of course we also have urban refugees within Kampala. And over time, when we meet refugees, there is this one striking story that really touched me when I met this young lady from South Sudan, and she came with about 5 children. And when we were interviewing her, she shared with me that her husband had been killed in war, and she came alone. And for her, the most painful moment was not because she had lost her land, she had lost her husband, she had lost all this material wealth. But for her, the most important thing was the sense of safety, the sense of belonging, and basically the certainty of the future. So basically, every time when we talk about World Refugee Day, it's not just basically about the obligation we hold as duty bearers and as humanitarian agencies, but basically how do we have a conversation around ensuring that everyone is safe, lives in dignity, and we continuously embrace an environment that is inclusive of all. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for being part of this particular panel as well. Now, closest to her, we do have Mr. Bafaki Charles from the Office of the Prime Minister. Very good morning, Charles. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, moderator and listeners. I'm Bafaki Charles, a Principal Settlement Officer in the Office of the Prime Minister, Department of Refugees. We are the responsible agents of government that hosts refugees in Uganda. And hosting refugees is a responsibility of government in the first place. And with partners, we do this, including host communities and the refugees themselves. World Refugee Day is very important in our operation to remind us that there are these people, they are with us, They need our support. They need a dignified life. They are also as people as we are, and we need to support them until when they can go back in dignity and in peace and dignity. That's the whole question that we deal with at the Department of Refugees.
All right, thank you very much again. And then also, lastly on the panel, Conrad Chimbugwe, Legal Officer, Access to Justice, Refugee Law Project. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having us. Our esteemed viewers, just like I've been introduced, my name is Chimbugwe Conrad Jeremy, and I work with the Refugee Law Project that is under School of Law, Makerere University. And I specifically work under the Access to Justice Department, but we do have several departments at the Refugee Law Project. I'm excited to be here today. I'm very, very passionate about issues to do with refugees. I've worked in this space for a specific period of time, and I've also had the chance to work outside Uganda. You know, as Ugandans, when we hear this word refugees, we seem to look at it as an alien concept, but I was very surprised and shocked when I worked in South Africa, and I was actually interacting with Ugandan refugees in South Africa. Yeah, so it's a phenomenon that's everywhere in the world. So when we commemorate days like the World Refugee Day, for me, it just reminds me of the work we need to do, supporting the government fulfill their international commitments towards refugees, their protection, their sustenance. So when I'm in rooms like this and I get opportunities to discuss issues to do with refugees with my senior colleagues here, I think it's an honor, and I hope it will be a great conversation.
Well, indeed, let's hope it's going to be an impactful one at that. Let me start off with Ms. Florence. When you look at Uganda's open door policy and peaceful coexistence, we've got a progressive open door refugee policy that has created opportunities, not only for physical protection and inclusion. Now, if you were to look at it, what practical actions are needed to address the often invisible dimensions of well-being, such as emotional and psychological health, and the sense of safety for these refugees?
Thank you very much. I think it's important for us to remember that every time we are discussing the concept of refugees, basically we are not looking at statistics. Because behind every statistic, there is a person, a human being, there is a person with a dream, and basically there is a future here we are talking about. And of course we realize that, for example, currently Kampala alone is hosting about 17 nationalities, and these are divergent groups. And these divergent groups basically tells you that they have different aspirations, but also right from their cultures and the different. But going back to the question you have asked, again, colleagues and the viewers, we need to remind ourselves that wherever there is war, definitely mental health issues will arise. And the people we see here today with us, they have gone through quite troublesome events in their lives. Some of them have been sexually abused because we all know that normally rebels use sex or rape as a weapon in war. So a number of them carry trauma from the country of origin, and when they come to Uganda, our biggest ask or rethink is for us to ensure that we create an environment where they can thrive but not to survive. So basically, the aspect has been that we need to invest more in the mental health component, not only just looking at the community in itself, but we need to look at the individual perspectives, the different individuals. And of course, when you look at it, currently we have women, we have children, and we have the men. So basically, that also tells you that the nature of interventions that you offer necessarily have to also be more appropriate to the different needs of the different communities. But we are emphasizing a lot in regard to mental health. We are emphasizing a lot in the aspect of treating people with dignity. And I think one of the most collective elements, again, is that before we as agencies came into function, the communities existed. And I think for this year, our biggest ask has been, how do we promote peaceful coexistence between the Ugandans and the refugees? And as I told you, that Lady Grace said when she came to Uganda, actually the first person that welcomed her was a Ugandan. And they lived together. And of course, it reminds us that when we look at life, I would give an example of COVID. We had a number of new arrivals coming in. They had nowhere to stay, no documents. There were quite a lot of things that happened. But they were welcomed by Ugandans. Ugandans shared with them. And there is this captivating story about an elderly person that came in, and she could not be able, because of mobility issues, she could not be able to go and access food. And the local council structures helped, and they would be able to take food every day to this older woman. And for me, it reminds me that when humanity transcends beyond nationality, and I think that is what we are calling upon for everyone, that we need to focus more on humanity under the Ubuntu, look at investing more into humans, look at the aspect of dignity, look at having transformative programs that basically bring life to people, and basically we shall be able to alleviate what they've gone through. Of course, we may not comprehensively address it, but we want to create hope where there seem to be no hope. And this could be through schools. We are encouraging that even in terms of schools, we are talking about local integration, where refugee children are actually accessing services at the same level like the Ugandans. We are in health centers. We are still advocating for the same. So basically, this creates a sense of hope. It creates a sense of acceptance, and basically which helps survivors of best violence, survivors of rape, survivors of war, basically to heal, because there is an assumption that trauma heals faster wherever there is acceptance. Thank you.
Well, and Charles, when you look at this situation, how can our policy help Ugandan communities, asylum seekers and refugees cultivate the sense of hope?
Well, moderator, before going there, I think let's first look at the question of open door policy.
True.
Because now we have over 2 million refugees here under the open door policy, which most times scare some people. We open door policy until when, and why our doors so open? I think for me, it's not about opening doors that everyone should enter, but we are looking at people who are running away from danger. And this danger, I've worked in refugees for almost 30 years, or 30 years. For all the refugees I have received and touched, the danger is real. But until you feel it, then you imagine or see people who are smiling and happy, but behind every running refugee, every refugee who crosses our border here, the danger is real. And we have to keep our doors open so that they can feel safe as the first principle, as the baseline. It is about feeling safe. It is not even about food. It is not even about eating, but it is that I feel safe. I can be sure of tomorrow. Because in those situations, even tomorrow is not assured. So, and like she said, this open door policy is ingrained in the Ubuntu tradition, which we all have here. Even if we actually closed the doors, Ugandans would still admit refugees into their homes, into their communities. And as you know, most of these borders from which refugees cross are actually kin and kith. We are only separated by border lines, which were drawn by some people in Berlin, but people in Kitgum are the same people across. Okay. The people in Madi, in Adjumani are the same people across, as well as in Kisoro and other places. Okay. So we are in this center of conflicts around us, and therefore we have to allow people who are running away from danger to feel safe first. Okay. Now, when they are here and they are safe, other things follow. We have then to take care of their needs, basic needs, food and stuff, then education and health, and all those that go with it. But we are lucky that in Uganda, our people, the host community, are as hospitable as you can never imagine. That they can allow refugees to share with them the little they have. They can allow to share the resources. Is quite commendable and quite admirable. I have not seen this in so many places, but we are lucky that as a department, we are not alone in managing refugees, and we think we can still maintain this policy until when everyone feels safe, where we also use firewood. It means there is a need for an alternative to this energy. No one eats uncooked food. Food in Uganda is cooked using apparently maybe 80% is firewood. So it is sustainable. Where the international community supports us find alternative cooking solutions for these people. We need that. We need these humanitarian workers, humanitarian interveners. We need to here from house to support the refugees and the community where they live to do these things for themselves. We need this development, investors, for example, people's factories, people with you got a factory in Bangladesh and employ both the laws and refugees. The labor is available. So once people can do some work, then even if they earn as little as can feed them per day, that for us is a big deal. Education, actually, we also challenge them to even visit us in these places and see the life we live there. Not in these boardrooms, as he was saying. Let everyone come to us, look at these schools, see how children sit in class. An engineer, a Euro engineer is seated there, whom we all need at a later time. I think for me, I challenge all of us, including the refugees themselves, to try and take care of their needs, the host community to take advantage of the presence of refugees, to generate relationships. These relationships are important not only now, but also in future. When you have a refugee who is your friend and he goes back to Congo, it makes it easy for you probably to do business with them when they are back home. So their being here could be an advantage one way or the other. So I think for me, those are the challenges and those are the opportunities that walk along them.
Florence, the Norwegian Refugee Council has worked closely with many national and local organizations in supporting refugees and asylum seekers. Looking back, what has made these partnerships effective, particularly in urban settings, and what are the key lessons that have emerged that can guide future collaboration?
Thank you very much. Of course, when we discuss partnership, it's basically born from the fact that we understand what our strength is, what our mandate is, what we are mandated to do. And for example, for us as the Norwegian Refugee Council, specifically for the urban, we provide legal assistance, that is access to justice. We also do community-based interventions where we are working with the communities to build their capacities, but we are also supporting under education. And of course, when I talk about mandate, is for us to appreciate that from the Refugee Act of 2006, the aspect is that refugees should be able to access services like the rest of the other Ugandans. So by INFA, it means that for us, what we are doing is to complement government in order to ensure that they deliver the international mandate, but as well as what is legally inscribed within the Constitution and as well as the different statutes. So you realize that, for example, as we've been discussing, refugees present themselves with multi-sectoral needs, and there will be health, there will be education, there will be livelihoods, and basically as an organization, you cannot say that you're able to respond to all the needs at the same time. But also it's recognizing that recognizing the contributions that the different partners bring on board. When you look at the refugees, as I said earlier on, that urban refugees, we have 17 nationalities. And basically that tells you that even the nature of issues they face basically will be different, either inborn because of the culture, because of the religion, but also basically where they are coming back, from the countries of origin. So that means also their needs are going to be quite different. So how then do we leverage on the partners we have to be able to contribute? For example, currently under the urban refugees, we are working with Refugee Law Project to render child protection interventions. We are working with AWAD basically to deliver, again, GBV, that is gender-based violence interventions to the refugees, but we are also working with the refugee-led organizations. This is born from the fact that we understand our contribution as partners, but we also realize that the national organizations, the refugee-led organizations, basically understand the context. And there would be no other person to work with like a person who understands the context. But also when we talk about issues of referrals, is that referrals can only be effective and access to services can only be effective if we have a meaningful partnership with the different partners. For example, we are working with KCCA to ensure that the education of everyone is mainstreamed, and ideally every child, every refugee child. We've seen cases here in Kampala where we have Somali children. They come in country when they speak Somali. And when now they are to be enrolled in schools within KCCA, the government schools, they will have limitation in regard to catching up with the rest of the other children. So the aspect has been that how do we then support with teachers who are assistants to support in the aspect of English bridging. So that in itself is a partnership on that level, because we realize that there must be limitations in resources, but how do we come in as a partner, as a contributor to the response to ensure that we employ teachers into these schools, assistant teachers, because of course government, as under the Ministry of Education, gives us teachers. But we also recognize that amidst them there are children like who have been used to Arabic, and when they come into Uganda, it's basically an English country. So how do we then support to ensure that we have those teachers that are bridging? When we look at the health centers, how do we support by employing or using the community structures to be able to go into the hospitals and they are interpreting? So basically the aspect of partnership is inborn from the fact of mandate, but also in understanding the contributions. And the other element is that we are learning a lot, because they appreciate the context. Even when we talk about capacity building, it's not only from the NRC perspective to the national entities, but there is something NRC learns from the partners, and there is something the partners are learning from us as well. And of course, we are saying that for us to have sustainable partnerships, or we are looking at long-term interventions, basically we must be able to have long-term partnership which are meaningful, which basically contribute to one another. Thank you.
Okay, and just to also give you some bit of the statistics, the Uganda registered refugee and asylum seeker population officially surpassed the 2 million mark. Now, this makes Uganda the largest refugee hosting country on the continent and one of the top 6 refugee hosting nations globally. Now, most of the refugees in Uganda have fled conflicts in neighboring countries such as the DRC, South Sudan. We do have others coming in from Somalia, Eritrea. We do have quite a number of those, but the majority of the refugees coming in from South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, Uganda is also witnessing a growing influx from Sudan, with more than 80,000 refugees seeking safety from the ongoing conflict there. So you could easily see where we are coming from with this conversation. But as we build up on the same, as we continue with our conversation, Conrad, let's talk integration, belonging, and community resilience. Across Uganda, there are various examples of refugees and host communities living, working, and growing together. So from your perspective, what do these experiences teach us about fostering belonging, strengthening resilience, and building more inclusive communities?
Yeah. All right, thank you so much. So I think the entry point is that when you talk about belonging and inclusion, these are everyday things. This is everyday life, okay? So I don't want us to look at it as something, an alien concept. Belonging basically means that we are able to go to the same schools. My children, your children, a refugee's child are able to go to the same schools. They're able to go to the same hospitals. They're able to go to the same playground and play. We share services. We share resources. most importantly these days, even shared grief. I've been in spaces whereby you'll go and find, like, if we're celebrating World Refugee Day, you actually have hosts and nationals who are also going in there to celebrate with their refugees. So the most important lesson is that when you're talking about integration and belonging, these are everyday things. So the ability for us to accept some of these refugees to participate in these things, accept them to receive our services, live in our communities, that builds belonging, and it's a very good entry point. Second of all, I think resilience is also a community quality. It's not just an individual one. So it's not something that is only particular to refugees or only nationals. I'll tell you one thing for sure is that when host communities feel like they're supported, they open up. They begin actually acknowledging and accepting that some of these people are part of us. Mr. Bafachi talked about communities like in the West Nile, Kitgum and Adjumani. These are very good examples whereby there have been services that have gone into those communities, and the hosts and the nationals now know that we are able to get these services, these good roads, these hospitals, and these schools because we have some of our refugees in those places. So that is very key and crucial. The other thing I want to mention is that I think we need to call further on government action and also civil society and donors to invest in both communities. A very good example, I said, if there's a job opportunity, if a factory is built in a place, let it not only take nationals, but let it also be able to use the manpower of the refugees. You know, when these people keep on working together, and if they continue seeing these interventions, not only targeting nationals, but also targeting the refugees, it creates a sense of one, Ubuntu. We become one, so there is no need for the divides and everything. And once we take that approach to ensure that all services, everything that is available is both available for both nationals and both refugees, then the conversation about belonging and inclusion then becomes very easy and seamless.
Okay. And Mr. Charles Bafachi, when you look ahead, the future, what is your vision for the relationship between refugees, asylum seekers, and host communities in Uganda? Now, if we are successful, what will that future look like, and how should it feel like?
The future, the way I see it, is continued peaceful coexistence between the refugees and host communities. And this sometimes is quite natural. We don't even put in a lot of energy to activate it. It activates itself. The moment refugees arrive as new arrivals, the next day you find children already playing with the national children. Already you find women going into villages to work for food. That natural symbiosis, we don't have to put in even a lot of energy to do it, to achieve it, but we only need to put in energy to sustain it, to ensure that both refugee and host community children are studying and quality education, not 200 children in a classroom. It is our effort, it is our duty to ensure that the children are in school. It should be our duty to ensure that the youth have options. You know, sometimes we forget about these people. The youth should have options, should have complete their education, because some come at certain stages. We need to support them to finish their education. And after school, then there should be alternatives. What can they do? Then we need to ensure that refugees become self-reliant, not dependent. And this is for all of us, especially humanitarian actors. We need to ensure that refugees are self-reliant. We need to ensure that host communities also look at the refugees not as a burden, but as an opportunity. You know, in my home, if a visitor visited, then that would be an opportunity to have a good meal, to have, you know, that kind of life. Huh? That's how it was. So equally, when refugees come here, the host communities, this is an opportunity also to have a good road, to have a good school, to have a factory within the neighborhood, to create some employment.
Okay.
So I think looking forward, for me, refugees should be looked at as an opportunity, not as a burden.
Okay.
And this is not in business transaction terms, but in humanity terms. Sometimes people get concerned about the presence of many numbers, but I can assure the country that the presence of refugees does not deny any of us our opportunities. Instead, the presence of refugees expands opportunities for both populations.
Okay. And Florence, the commitment to leave no one behind is central to refugee responses. How have you seen this principle come to life in both refugee settlements and in the urban areas? And also, if you could, share with us examples of solidarity between host communities and refugees that demonstrate what meaningful inclusion looks like while in practice.
Okay, thank you very much. And right from what you have said, of course, hope begins with inclusion. Where there is no inclusion, then we will not have a hope. So like the story I shared to you about, and there are quite a number of them that we have interfaced with, where the lady was mainly not concerned about the land she had lost, but the aspect of certainty of future, the aspect of safety, the concept of belonging, being able to belong. So hope can only begin where there is inclusion. And I think that calls for us as partners, but also as well as government, that in all our interventions, intentionality is very important. Because if we are not intentional, then the concept of leave no one behind will not be upheld. For example, as earlier on I shared, of those 2 million Ugandans, we have children, we have women, we have men, we have persons with disability, we have elderly persons. So basically that tells us that even the nature of their needs are quite divergent, they are different. So basically we need to be more intentional and look at how do we address the needs appropriate based on the different age, the gender, as well as the diversity as we look at it. For example, there are some communities you will go to, like our sisters from Sudan. They are Muslims and they are based more from a Sharia law. Now they enter Uganda and basically life is so different. Either they've been used to going to the Mosigid and they use the Islamic curriculum. And when they come to Uganda, they are coming to more of a British curriculum. Now the concept of leave no one behind is saying that yes, I am coming, I must be able to access. First of all, the law is saying I should be able to access services like the rest of the other Ugandans. But in the aspect of inclusion is not you just welcoming me into a school, but being more intentional, recognizing that yes, as much as I'm a child, I have a right to education, but I am limited because of language. So how then do we have an English bridging teacher to be able to support this child to catch up with the other? So in inclusion, or leaving no one behind, is recognizing that different people have different capacities, but how do we ensure that our interventions actually incorporate? And like I shared to you, that story of the lady during COVID, you know, where the host community, we are working currently so much with the local council ones within the urban, and the local council ones are coming in to really support. They are coming in to refer the different people to the different units. We have refugees who are coming into the country when they do not know where to seek the service, but when they come into Kampala, they are able to go to the LC1, and the LC1 is referring them to NRC, referring them to OPM, referring them to Refugee Law Project. So basically the aspect of inclusion is basically not just about acceptancy, but we are saying that we need to be more intentional in how we are delivering from the different fronts and ensuring that all groups, all persons are not left behind, but everyone is included based on their concerns. Thank you.
Well, regarding the settlement patterns, about 91% of the refugees live in Uganda's 13 rural refugee settlements. Yeah. Now, here they coexist with the majority or the host communities, that is the Ugandans, and the remaining 9% reside in the urban areas, mainly in Kampala. And if you've been very observant enough, you've come across quite a number of those. Now, gentlemen and lady, as we sum up with our conversation, Conrad, looking toward 2026 and beyond, what are the two most important messages or recommendations you would like policymakers, humanitarian and development actors, host communities inclusive, refugees, and the wider public to take away?
Yeah, I think, thank you so much. My parting shots is that it's a reminder that when you talk about refugee protection, it's not charity. It is an obligation, okay? It's an obligation that streams down from the government towards civil society and all other stakeholders. I think Uganda has shown a very good example in regards to what open door can be. I mean, we do have our challenges, but I want to commend the Ugandan government for the steps that we have taken. Now, additionally, I think we must just increase our commitment when it comes to resources in regards to supporting these refugees. It is quite evident. We know that the funds have reduced. There's very many other things happening all around the world that also need such kinds of funds and all those sorts of things. But I think with genuine inclusion of all refugees at all levels, we can continue protecting these people, we can continue including them, and create a conducive environment for them to stay and continue enjoying life in Uganda. The other thing I think I would like to note is I think there needs to be a mind shift change, you know. At times, and I'll stress this, when we talk about refugees, a majority of our population thinks that these people are just coming to take away from us. But I want to give you a very good example. Look at the areas around Kabalagala. There's very many refugees that are actually in those areas. And you'll find that I've gone in there for some community policing and some discussions, and you find that some of these hosts are very happy and excited that these refugees are also coming in there, bringing in funds and also creating jobs for these people. So we need to begin looking at these refugees from a different lens. They're not here just to take away from us, but we can also learn a thing or two from them, and we actually can do benefit from them and live harmoniously as communities.
Okay. Yes. And Charles, how can each one of us use our knowledge, resources, influence, and collective efforts to invest in recovery, resilience, and long-term development, where we have an inclusive outdoor policy, open door rather policy? Open door policy.
But I wanted to touch something on protection, because sometimes it is misunderstood by some people who think that refugee protection means protecting a refugee from lawful enforcement of law and order. When they do wrong, they should not be touched because they are protected.
Okay.
No, refugees in Uganda live under the laws of Uganda, and they are subject to the laws of Uganda. So if a refugee commits an offense that is chargeable in courts of law, they will face the law as any other Ugandan who commits an offense. So protection doesn't mean that we are shielding refugees from when they make offenses. But coming back to the question, I think we as government, we shall continue to ensure that policies that govern the presence of refugees in Uganda are adhered to, especially the Refugee Act 2006 and the regulation thereof. They give refugees quite a number of rights and obligations, and it is those rights and obligations that make our hosting of refugees the best in the world, and we shall continue to adhere to that or even improve it if other actors like them tell us areas to act on. We shall be ready to act, but they should also do their part. Their part is to either remind us of what we need to do, but also to contribute to the welfare of the refugees, but also for the refugees while here to make every effort to sustain their lives, not to wait for others to help them, as long as the environment supports their own abilities to explore their talents, their skills, and live on those talents and skills.
All right. Thank you very much, Charles. Let's get to Madame Flores. Ultimately, what will it take to strengthen protection, deepen inclusion, and create opportunities for all?
I think for me, my parting shots is basically for us to appreciate that a true measure of our success is not basically in regard to how many we accommodate, how many we are taking care of, but it's basically about upholding the rights of the different people, effectively working towards social cohesion. And I think it's, as I close out, it's important for us to remind ourselves that the refugee question is not basically a humanitarian concern, but it's a question of the law, it's a question of justice, and it's a question of collective humanity. So, Ubuntu is what we are, and it's what we live for, and what we strive for. Thank you very much.
All right. Again, thank you for each one of you for these particular views that you've aired out in this conversation. And to you who has been part of our discussion with the hashtag World Refugee Day is what we have been using, and you can be part of this particular conversation as they continue online. In the same regard, allow me to take you through the introductions of my panelists this very mid-morning. Conrad Chimbugwe, Legal Officer, Access to Justice, Refugee Law Project. Thank you again, Conrad, for being part of this. And then we've had Mr. Bafaki Charles, who is Principal Settlement Officer from the Office of the Prime Minister. Charles, thank you once again for your time and your views. And then closest to me is Ms. Florence Masi Namugere, Protection Coordinator, Norwegian Refugee Council, who has also been part of this panel. Now, as we continue to commemorate World Refugee Day, let us remember to celebrate the resilience of displaced people while reaffirming our commitment to creating safer, inclusive, and health communities for all. As we commemorate, or as we continue to commemorate this particular World Refugee Day, we need to also remember that until everyone